Namaste, I'm Bidya. I'm speaking to Patricia McCormick, the author of the book Sold. Patty, welcome.
Thank you.
When I was reading your book, in the acknowledgement, I recognized few names, including Ruchira Gupta. And, I commend your work and Ruchira's work. People like you bringing these taboo subject of sex trafficking is very important to bring awareness.
Ruchira was one of the people who got me started in this. It was seeing her film that gave me the courage to do what I did. And she was literally one of the first people who helped me.
Well, your book is not only a book. I think it's part of the solution. It is being used now as an educational tool. As you know, the book has been now translated by the DD Project. So how do you feel about the book now being in Nepali?
I'm so pleased and proud of that as one of the most important accomplishments of the book. Because, yes, it's been read by people in the United States and other countries, but since it portrays an experience that begins in Nepal, to have readers there be able to see that experience in their language, beautifully translated, is an incredible gift.
There are so many trafficking problems around the world. Why did you choose Nepal?
I chose Nepal and India in particular because those are two countries that have made a lot of progress on the issue of trafficking. There are a lot of NGOs working in both countries on education, on prevention, on setting up stations at the borders, on rescuing the girls and rehabilitating them, that it made it much easier for me as a reporter to go in and find the people that I needed to talk to because of the hard work and the generosity of the people in Nepal and India who are doing the work on the ground.
What motivated you to write this book?
Do you know, I started working on the book years ago, and I had not ever heard of trafficking. I was on vacation, and I met a young man who was a photographer, and I pestered him to death with questions, and he said he was working as a photographer, posing as a customer, going into brothels to solicit the service of young girls, and then he would take their pictures and document that they were there and get that information out to the rescue groups. I was stunned. I didn't know that such a thing was happening.
How were you able to collect such details of Lakshmi's village and her voyage to India and her brothel experience?
That was very much through the generosity and the help of Mighty Nepal. I went out to a little village with young women from Mighty Nepal who were doing a campaign of outreach, and they were very kind to let me come along. And it was just being in the location that was to me so beautiful and so fresh that I wanted to take in every single detail that I possibly could. And the same thing in the brothels. It was Ruchira Gupta's group, Apnayat, who got me into the brothels to interview the young women there.
How were you able to get these women to talk to you about their brothel experience?
I think it came from just spending time with them. I was able to work at Mighty Nepal for a couple days and go out to these villages with the girls. And I learned a very good lesson on one of the long bus rides out. I started to ask one of the girls her story, and she wouldn't talk to me. And I asked another, and she wasn't comfortable talking. And I realized later that maybe they don't even share their stories with each other out of a sense of shame or just kind of keeping that memory separate. And I was about to leave Nepal, and I got a knock on my hotel door, and two of the girls that I'd spent a lot of time with just showed up and said they were ready to talk, and I canceled my plans to leave. And they spent the whole day going over memories that I know were very painful for them, but they did it so that the book could be authentic and render their experiences truly. And they did it so that this wouldn't happen to some other girl.
Did you have a translator?
I did. In every case, I had translators, first from Mighty Nepal, and then I had a former member of parliament in Kathmandu who helped me around. And it was just amazing how people of goodwill came along to help me with the project.
Do you think it helped you to interview these women because you're not Nepali?
I wonder. I shared with them pieces of my personal history, and I am a survivor of sexual assault, and I thought that that might help to put them at ease. And one of the things that stunned me was how surprised they were that I too had had an experience, not as bad as theirs, but similar. I think they thought that this sort of thing might not happen in the United States, and they were full of compassion for me.
So in your research, did you follow one situation or many situations? Did you consolidate the stories of different girls?
I made a composite character based on a lot of bits of research that I found from individual stories. And I didn't want it to be a true story about one girl. I thought that might be too hard to accomplish, and it might compromise someone's privacy.
Are there any pieces that you wanted to use but you threw it out?
Always. I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but if the detail doesn't fit for the character that you've created, no matter how wonderful you think it is, if it doesn't belong to that character, it just doesn't belong.
While reading your book, one of the things that caught my attention was the Lakshmi's stepfather. Mm-hmm. Now, in South Asian countries, it's common to have stepmothers, but not stepfather. Mm. Why did you use stepfather? Was it more palatable for the readers to have a evil stepfather?
Yes. It was clear to me from the research that most of the sales of girls take place by relatives, whether they know what they're doing or not, a brother, an uncle, a cousin. And I couldn't really go and imagine a father selling his own daughter, so I made it a stepfather. And I also thought that would make the situation of the girls or the women in the family more precarious.
What do you want readers to take away from Lakshmi's story?
My dream reader feels outrage about the situation and is moved to do something about it. If you finish the book and you're depressed and I have made you feel like the world is a terrible place, then I haven't done my job. My hope is that when you finish the book, the next thing you do is turn to the back of the book and find out how you can get involved.
Are you planning a sequel to this book?
I don't think so. A lot of people ask me that, and there are a lot of students in particular who find the ending unsatisfying, but that's intentional. I think if you take care of everything and you let the readers know that everything came out okay, it doesn't work on them in the same way that an open ending does. It troubles your conscience in a way, and you wonder whatever happened to her.
You did talk about you work with Mighty Nepal and other organizations. Have you been in contact with these organizations?
I have, and one of the things that's been my great pleasure is that when I go to schools and the students will say, what can we do? And I explain that the best thing they can do at this point is raise money, even modicums of money. Go a very long way. I'll explain that $5 will buy a girl a new dress, her first modest dress and pair of shoes after she leaves the brothel.
At least in printed report, the government recognizes the sex trafficking problem in Nepal. Mm-hmm. What do you think the government and Nepalis can do to curb the sex trafficking?
A lot of really wonderful work has been done by the Nepali government. There's been a lot of sensitivity training among police officers who now know what to look for at the borders, who now understand that these girls are not prostitutes, they are not criminals, but that they are victims. Much better stepped up enforcement at the borders. I think the key thing that needs to happen is enforcement of the laws that exist.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that it is such an honor for me that the book was translated so beautifully and with so much hard work and effort and passion and love put into the project, that it means more to me than the commercial translations of the book into other languages. This is really an important moment for the book.
Thank you, Patty. I'm Bidya Ranjit. I've been speaking to Patricia McCormick, the author of the book Sold.